Countless public figures wonder, how on earth should I be handling my public relations? There is a whole job dedicated to just figuring that out. But hey, you don't really need a public relations individual to do that for you. Like, it helps, don't get me wrong, but you can do it yourself. But rather than figuring out how to handle your public relations, let's figure out how not to do that. And in that case, we can look to the developer of Factorio as an example of, how he could have done things a little better. Let's just paint a scene for you right now. Someone comes to you with an idea. You hear the idea, and you're like, you know what, that idea, I don't really like that. I'm not really on board with that. I don't really agree with that. So how do you tell that person that's how you feel? Well, most people would be like, hey man, I don't like that, and here's why. In a respectful manner to one another, so you can hear each other's thoughts out and, make sense of where the other person's coming from, and they can do the same for you. Or you can just tell them to take that idea and shove it way up their asshole. So deep up there that you are never gonna have to hear that shit ever again. Obviously, the second one is how you're meant to be doing this, just in case you were wondering. It's very clear to me that is how we meant to do these things. Now, for those who don't know, that's sarcasm. And how could we have done this better? In the case of the developer, who is the main brain behind Factorio, the original developer who came up with the game, the manager of the company, essentially, they were in a little bit of hot water recently because they were talking about some new ideas they had for their code that they had got from a notoriously infamous developer who in the past has made some comments that have made some people uncomfortable. He's made some sexist remarks here and there, apologized for some, whatever, irrelevant to the point. This man, essentially, he's not very liked by some groups on the internet. He shared some information from him, not talking about the sexist remarks he's made. He just talked about the coding points that he gave and how he had learnt from his talks on them. Fair enough, I suppose, whatever. However, some people were unhappy because, hey man, this guy that you're talking about, he's a bit of a shithead. People don't really like him. He said some things. Maybe you should just add a little bit of a disclaimer. Maybe you should just take, what you've said and just let some people know I'm not okay with that. What he says, the other stuff, I'm not okay with, but that's neither here nor there. However, the way the developer decided they would handle this is they'd simply take that comment and tell them to take your cancel culture mentality and shove it way up your ass. I don't even think they were asking you to cancel what you were doing here. I feel like this might even just be a simple case of you not understanding what we were even really talking about here. Because they didn't even want you to get rid of your posts. They didn't even want you to take anything back. They just wanted you to add a little bit of a disclaimer. Because, this guy has hurt some people. Hell, in the original post they say, I know, politics and games don't mix well, but promoting a controversial person without any reservation is a political act. And you know what? I have to agree. By bringing that person up and not saying anything, yeah, look, it's fair enough. People might presume that you don't have a problem with him. Sure, whatever. Add a disclaimer. I think this guy's ridiculous when he says those things. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. Doesn't mean you can't reference him. And hey, look, ultimately that's irrelevant to what you were talking about in the first place. So you're not even putting that there to discredit that information. You're literally just doing it for the other stuff that person has said. Like, parallel. Way back in World War II, the Nazis did some absolutely horrible experimentation on humans. Absolutely fucking ridiculous, horrible shit. You can look this shit up. Here's the thing. That's a horrible idea. We don't do that shit anymore. But some research came from it that was pretty good, and we still kind of, we use that information. It's not like we suddenly throw that information out the window because the nature of it was horrible. Like, the information is there. We take the information. It's useful information. It's fair enough. We just don't say, hey, that was a good thing that it was, it was done. Well, the nature of it wasn't good, but it's good we have the information. And the Factorio dev, a few days later, is still standing by their remarks. This seems like the hill they're going to live and die on. Hell, the arguments that they got into got so heated on their subreddit that their moderators actually had to delete it, because not only did it go against their own subreddit's policies, it went against Reddit's policies. It turned into a massive just mud-flinging shit stain festival up in there. So naturally they had to get rid of it. But imagine that. Imagine saying things that are so horrible that even on your own subreddit for the game that you make, your comments have to be deleted. Oh my God. So look, this is just a case in point example of how things could have been done better. You know, man didn't even need to agree. He didn't even need to give the disclaimer. He could have just politely disagreed. He could have been respectful of other people's opinions, but instead, they chose to sling shit. If you want to get into a shit slinging competition, don't be surprised when it gets dirty. Don't be surprised when the internet's like, hey man, this guy smells like shit, looks like shit, and I don't want a bar of it. So what's the takeaway? Ultimately, it really just comes down to respect in my mind. You know, you can be respectful of their thoughts and opinions, you can add the disclaimer. You can be respectful of their thoughts and opinions by just simply disagreeing with them politely. But if you come out guns blazing, without a damn to give, and only insults to throw, then I feel like you're just digging yourself a hole. And no doubt, many more people are now going to hear about this incident because it got so out of hand, because we turned this into an absolute dumpster fire of an incident. So, you know, ultimately, if you're thinking, how should I be going about public relations, take this as an example on how you shouldn't be. Take this example and put that in the back of your mind and be like, let's not do that. Let's try doing anything but that. Although, I do have to wonder who the disclaimer really is for. Because in my mind, the disclaimer isn't for anyone else on the internet. The disclaimer is for the developer. The disclaimer is for the developer to be like, hey, I don't agree with that. Don't lump me in with people that do agree with those shitty comments that guy made. And frankly, those comments are irrelevant to what we're talking about. We're not even going to get into that. We're talking about relevant, valid, apolitical discussion on coding. That's what we're talking about. So just forget about the other comments. They're not relevant. And I don't agree with them. I don't stand by them. And I say that because is that disclaimer really going to help somebody who's already not down that path of thought realize that what they're looking at here is sexist remarks? And on top of that, I have to believe that it's the personal responsibility of the individual looking at the remarks to realize that for themselves. Because if they can't realize that, then do they really even stand for those ideals that we're trying to cherish here? Do they really even give a damn about that? If they can't see those remarks for themselves and then come to that conclusion on their own, I have to believe that they don't really stand by those things, or they don't really care about those things enough to even realize it. And if that's the case, well, the disclaimer isn't going to do anything for them anyway. They're going to look at that disclaimer, shrug, and be like, what the fuck, I don't care. What the fuck, this is not relevant. What the hell, I don't even want to read this. If we go deeper into the since deleted thread, we find that ultimately the developer of Factorio does actually hold the same opinion as me here. And I'll quote here, I won't even search him up. You know why? Because I don't care at all. I don't care if he cheats on his wife, is a bigot, or pays proper tips in restaurants. These things are simply not relevant. If Stalin had a good write-up on programming, would linking that be dangerous because some people might read it, start liking him, and thus liking communism and the inevitable mass murder that follows it? Is this how little we trust other individuals when it comes to access to information? I personally trust my readers to have the ability to create their own opinions instead of blindly following whatever says the person they like. So there you go. Smack bang, right on to the point. Couldn't agree more. It doesn't really matter. You're not talking about any of that other stuff. It's irrelevant to the point you're making. Sure. Ultimately, I think it's more to do with just the way that you've gone about it here. You know, you're not really being respectful of others, and there's a comment just before this that I think sums it up pretty damn well as well. That's a pretty disappointing response. It's fine to disagree, but I thought as the founder of Factorio, you would have had more tact than this. And that's really what it comes down to. And look, they want to put their opinion out there, and they want their opinion to be understood and respected, but the thing is, the way they're going about it right now, every other person who disagrees with them has just as much credence to just be like, hey, take your opinion and put it way up your butthole. Because you know what, that's what I think of you. And you know, does that really breed good grounds for discussion, growth, and understanding? Of course not. It breeds grounds for arguments. It breeds grounds for disagreements that won't be solved. Respect each other and you'll get that respect back, and maybe we might even just learn and maybe we might progress. But right now, this is not how you do it. You're throwing fuel on a fire. Hey, so if you enjoyed this little bit of the off-the-cuff rant, this is my first time just getting in front of a camera and just letting my thoughts roll. Let me know. If you got some thoughts on what I said and you've got some feedback, you want to hit me up with your own opinions, I'm all ears down in the comment section below. If you've got some takeaway of your own, maybe you've got a little bit of wisdom, maybe you disagree with me. Let's hear it. I'm all ears. Put it to me. Whatever you got to say, I want to know. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. If you really liked it, maybe subscribe. You'll see a bit more of it. Tell me you liked it. I'll get you some more content like this. Yeah, so anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.